know it's been a minute, but we're back and we're so excited to see all of you. We are just, oh my gosh, we missed all of you so much. And you know what? Let me get my co host out here because I know they have some amazing things they want to tell you. Hilton George, how are you?
I'm back. The crazy fall season has happened. Starting at New York Comic Con and ending at Thanksgiving, and just as well as
Yes,
anybody, with your
yes.
planes, trains, and automobiles, you're coming and going, and you're trying to wash
Oh,
clothes and sleep in between, and
oh,
it's been a
that's it.
crazy fall. We had some losses on our team that we had to deal with. My
Mm.
co-founder
Oh,
unfortunately passed. Actually, on the day that I was departing for New York Comic Con, I got the call that morning, and the humdrum and the hullabaloo, just really just kind of just took over before we really were able to wrap our heads around it. So all of that was wrapped into it, doing the organizational changes and updates and all that that's still ongoing, which has kept us off the air and kept us
yes.
in the air. But we're
Mm.
but we're here now, and just so glad to see you guys in my little box right here in
Yay!
my sanctum sanctorum. So
We've missed
Come
you.
on,
We have
Sanctum
missed.
Sanctorum.
Yes, we've missed you, Christi Renee. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm excited to be back with you guys. I have missed you. I mean, Karen, I've been fortunate enough to at least see you
Yes.
over the last month or two. But yeah, golly, Hilton. I mean, my heart just breaks for you. I can only imagine how devastating and difficult the times have been. But just know, we've been lifting you up and just constantly talking about, just when we see you again. So I'm so happy to see you in uplifting spirits, and
Yes.
just to see our faces all together again on this screen. It's incredible to know, like, okay, we went for so long filming, and now here we took that break, and to be back again, it's like, okay, no, we really doing something because I
Yeah.
miss y'all.
I
I
know.
miss this,
I
like,
miss y'all.
seriously.
I
So
agree. I agree. You know what? Before we go any further, Hilton, like you said, we lost your partner in crime, Haas, and he was such a special, special man. I just remembered when I saw you guys, I think it was one of the times we were at MomoCon, and he and I literally talked for 30 minutes. Like we were just like, blah, and it was just like he was the guy that you would see and just talk and have good conversation and just have, I mean, it was just good fellowship
wow.
amongst all of you, and I absolutely, my heart was broken. You guys know I lost a very good friend, part of my cast, Jason Frank.
Mhm.
It has been literally like some of the hardest few months for all of us. And it's
Mhm.
just one of those things where, man, it was like, I remember Hilton, you messaged me and you go, I feel like we're in a season of loss. Like it's just too much. And so
Yes.
we took a break. Like I literally remember telling all of you guys, and I just was like, we're just gonna take a break. I mean, I love doing this, but I know our own mental health and our own personal health and just taking time for ourselves to just feel those feelings was way more important. And I knew our audience would understand. I know
Yeah.
they love us. And we have like 40 episodes, 50 episodes that we were able to just keep running them. And
And they were
people,
tuning in.
people
They
were
continue
tuning
to tune
in, and
in.
people who hadn't seen them or people who wanted to see it again, they just like spent time laughing with us. And so for us, I just want to say, I'm just glad we're back. And I just seeing your faces and just being in this space brings me so much joy.
Yeah.
And I'm just very, very thankful. Um, we found out today, like before we started the
Ugh.
show, that someone Twitch, you know him as a DJ who was on the Ellen show. You also know him as
A dancer
uh,
from So You Think You Can
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Dance.
you think you can
Hmm.
dance. I mean,
Big
he's just been
staple on
so much.
that show.
It's
His
been a
family,
lot.
like they're like internet sensations. Him and his wife, they dance all the time together. The kids, it's just
Yeah.
he took his own life, and it's just like I said, I think we were in our own personal chat, and I've been toying ever since we lost Jason of just doing a show about mental health, doing a show about suicide prevention. I just feel like it's, mental health is so stigmatized in this country
Mhm.
that a lot of us don't get the help we need because you just don't, you don't want to be thought of as someone who has depression or someone who has anxiety, or you don't want to,
Mhm.
like, people just they're not given the space to feel those things. They're not given the
Yeah.
tools to work through the emotions that we have. Life is hard, and I
It
think
is.
that goes across the board for everyone. But what we will do in the future is we are going to do a special episode and bring on some experts and bring on some people, and hopefully we can all fellowship and learn together. But we have a special
Mhm.
episode today. We've got
Oh,
something that we have been like, you guys know, I have been waiting for, was it 4 years? We were waiting for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. We have been waiting for this movie. And so today we're going to dedicate this whole episode. I feel like I was going through my notes and I was like, we need like 8 hours to talk
we
about this
really do.
movie.
We really
A
do.
lot to talk about. A
Really
lot.
do.
It was so dense. It was
It
so
was so much.
rich
It was so
with
Yes.
culture, rich with love and sorrow, and like, this movie literally, like, it's funny because when I saw the movie I was like, wow, this movie is amazing, because it really helped me walk through different levels of grief or different levels of dealing with someone you lose and carrying on. And that was the storyline for Shuri, her dealing with
Mhm.
grief, loss, and just dealing with because you feel the sadness, you feel the rage, you feel the anger, you feel everything when you lose someone. And then, like, literally a few weeks later, I lost my friend, and it was just like, what is happening? But this movie was so inspiring.
Yeah.
I just want to get your just your on the surface takeaway, because we're gonna dive deep and we're gonna go. And if you haven't seen the movie, then you need to tune out, like,
At
turn it
If
off.
least
you
turn it.
listen, if you haven't seen the movie, you just need to unsubscribe because we're not friends.
Right?
We're
We're
not
not
friends.
This
friends.
we
You
haven't
cannot
reached you.
contribute.
We have
Right?
not reached you. You
Like
have
at
not
this
learned.
point, yes. And at this
What?
point, if you should have snuck in by now. Like if it's
Right.
money, if it's time, I don't care what it is. At this point,
It's
Yeah.
if you
been a
got to
multitude of
Matinee.
things.
put a pebble in the
Yes.
door so you can get in, like whatever you got to do,
Yeah.
you should have
Yeah.
seen
We,
this
like,
by now.
literally, it's probably too late. Like, I don't even want to call this a review. It's more of like we're just gonna have
An
our love
homage.
session. Yeah, our
Yeah,
love session for
There
this
you go.
film.
I like that. An homage.
an
An
homage.
homage to this movie and everything that this movie gave us. But
Ah,
okay, so Hilton, give me just your on the surface, like, when you walked out of because I know you've seen it multiple times. When
Mhm.
you walked out that first time, what was your feeling about Black Panther Wakanda Forever?
I have to say that this was probably one of the boldest and bravest moves that Marvel has done on film, for two reasons. One, it was a bold and brave move to not reflexively recast T'Challa. I know
yes.
that there
Yes.
was so many people that would just like recast him and work with Christopher Reeve and Superman and work with it, but da 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 da. And I've been in these chats and I've been talking with people, and I'm like, no, Chadwick is different.
It's
Chadwick is
different.
a different
Different.
actor who embodied this character in a different way. And this character means so much to the story and to the fans that we have to
To
have
the
a
people.
bridge. There may
Right.
be another, T'Challa played out in this multiverse phase 5 some kind of way, but for this, we needed it this way. And it would have been very easy for them to recast, and they didn't. And they told the story of loss, which allowed for us to feel the feelings that you were describing, Karen,
Mm-hmm.
which I think was part of the value of the movie. I mean, it was the underlying premise of the movie from which every part of the story that was told sprang forth from.
Yes.
And without it, I don't know that we would have had this movie. I don't know if it would have been as successful in taking the close of phase 4. This is the last movie in phase 4,
Mm-hmm.
and ushering us into phase 5. So
Mhm.
the bravery on the casting part was huge. I think
Yes.
that Letitia Wright playing Shuri's journey, she
Woo.
shocked me. I did
Yeah.
not know that she
The depth.
had that depth. She had that grit. She had that just amazing power punch performance in her, because she's been in all of her movies. She's played a lot of supporting roles, and I think this is the first time she's really been at the lead of a big property like this. And there was a lot of folks who were worried that she wouldn't be able to carry the story, but she ended up doing an amazing job. And we walked with her through that entire storyline and all of the different stages of grief, you know, and it was just amazing to watch. And lastly, well, not lastly, but the last thing I'll cite is the metamorphosis of Namor into the Kukulkan, you know, Aztec god. You know, that storyline was so brave to take a character as iconic as Namor, who in the comics is, you know, he's a lot of things, right? Yeah. But he's very, very well defined. He sits in, he's not some character that they could just casually just throw something else at or take to the left or the right and people wouldn't really notice, because Marvel has done that with other properties and people are like, you know, it's all right. I don't really care about the character. Like Namor is right up there. And to do that successfully was a real push. Now I know why they did it. You know, you just didn't want to have, on one hand, all these direct comparisons to Aquaman, which is the DC version of Namor in every conceivable way.
It came after.
You know, it came after.
Yeah, it came after
Namor. Namor was actually one of the first Marvel superheroes and the first mutant. So the kind of the storyline to carry out was huge. And to make that bold move to say, okay, we've taken this cultural step with this African lore and fashion and God and religion and fighting styles and everything that they did for Black Panther, say we're gonna push this in to this Mesoamerican, you know, storyline and do it so beautifully, and to have Tenak Helta perform him in that way and just capture Namor's craziness and, you know, that whole anti-hero, somewhat psycho, bipolar nature of that character. And that was so much more important to capture, I think, than his ethnicity or the purity of his backstory, which really wasn't that amazing, by the way, in the comics. You know, to actually be able to put him in that space and capture him, I think Ryan Coogler deserves all the praise and the flowers. Oh, and before
all the awards,
and let me tell you, if Angela Bassett doesn't get an Oscar nod for her performance,
she just got a Golden Globe.
She got the Golden Globe. I saw that and I clapped out loud. I'm telling you this, that without her performance, this movie doesn't do anything. She carried so much of the pain and so much of the maternal energy and the power of this film.
The power of the Black woman.
Oh my gosh! Like, and Karen, please make sure that we come back to Angela Bassett at some point. I got a lot to say. But I know we got one show and 3 people.
We got her. Trust me. I got a list. Like, I got a list. I got notes. I got steps. And Angela Bassett is her own entity.
We got a whole page. We got a whole section. Okay.
Yes. All right. And the whole section dedicated to her. Because you already know. Christi Renee. Christi is one of those who gives us play-by-play when she watches a movie, and we knew when she was crying, when she was no good watching this movie. No good. Christi, when you walked out of that theater, what did you feel?
Well, first of all, we sat there and we sat there and we sat there some more after it was done, and the lights, they were cleaning up around us, and
ma'am, you're gonna have to leave the theater.
Ma'am, you're right.
The new people are coming in, ma'am.
No end credits, no post credits, no none of that. Like, just it's
time
to go.
Lights are on, ma'am.
Like, the next film is showing, and we still sitting there because I was so. I mean, I needed to be carried out. Like, we had to stand around for a moment. I just had to process. It was getting home again. First, from the opening moment. So what they did where we went to go see this film was at an Alamo Draft House. Well, back in 2016, when we
don't have those here in LA.
When it first came out, Chadwick had done this promo for this theater, and they're big on turn your phone off, like do not pull your phone out, right? And so he did this promo, and but in the beginning it's black screen, black room, and it says in 2016 Chadwick Boseman did this promo for our theaters, and now we will re-release this for you all. So there we started with tribute, like just from the theater's perspective. And I just began to come unglued.
That's a low blow, Alamo Theater. That's a low blow.
Yeah, low blow. It was real
low. Hit you in the feels, like the minute one.
And here's the crazy part. It was funny. It was a funny bit, but it was like, because again, they had to go back in time and pull this because we couldn't do anything new, and so it really sets in like this real life man who became our superhero, but he intentionally lived his life. And we've talked about this before, because when we did the trailer, and we talked about the trailer, and just talking about Black Panther period, how he intentionally chose his roles that he played. And he's done some magnificent things. And this one in particular, just knowing who he was. And so this real life loss being interpreted and being poured out of the screen into everyone. There was not a dry eye. The sniffles, the snotting, the sneak. It was so much. So, and again, usually I don't like for people to breathe in the theater, but to hear the sniffle, like to know, like everybody's feeling this real life
everyone's
pain.
Affected. Yeah.
Everybody's affected. So from the very beginning, before Marvel even got started, we had the theater with that tribute, and then it goes into, and from the opening moments, let me tell y'all, I cried from start to finish, even when I was laughing. And of course, we had to talk about the funniest line, because who I really loved as far as, character development, I have to give it up for Winston Duke and his role now as M'Baku, and becoming a more regal presence, but he was still funny. Like even hearing his interviews, but just putting all that together, because I saw all of that before going in, so I was like ready. And then when he called Okoye that bald head demon, I was forlorn, but I'm still crying.
They had to break out the defibrillators on me. I couldn't go. I was going into the light.
Somebody get the stretcher, get the white sheet and the oil. I was done. I was done. But I mean, again, I even cried through all of that. So to be it was so much. I still cried. Like you were just talking about, Angela, just remembering Shuri's pain and all of that. And not just Shuri, but Letitia Wright's pain, everybody's pain coming through that screen was so palpable. It was so incredibly real, because it is real. And it just was, oh my God, I don't even know. There's no words, honestly. Like I'm still crying. I can think about it and just still come to tears. How beautiful.
I remember leaving the theater. Like, it's funny, that day I went in early. I was at a Comic-Con in Orlando. I was at my friend Mikey's show, and it's Ranger Stop. And this is like a family show. Like he and I co-own a show together. So I went in early to help him with his show. So literally that whole day, we're like setting up pipe and drape. We're like setting up the rooms. We're like, people are moving in. It's all this stuff. And I was like, guys, I'm going to go watch this movie. I'm going to go watch it if I have to go watch it by myself. I don't care what anyone else is doing at this time. I'm going to sneak away. And so me and another girl who was there, she was like, I'm with you. I'm leaving with you. And so we literally snuck, like they knew we were leaving, but we snuck out of there, went to the theater. We watched this movie. I went through every emotion that my heart could even take. Like I went through everything. I was in it. I went through the sadness. I went through anger. I went through happiness. I went through laughter. I mean, I went through every emotion, and I got out of that theater, and I remember just sitting in my room knowing I have to get up early the next day and be at a Comic-Con at 10 a.m. And I just sat there until like 2 in the morning. Like I needed like an hour to just process
Yeah.
all the emotions I felt and like decompress from the emotions that I went through. And I was so proud of this cast. I was so
Oh,
proud of Ryan Coogler. I was
Mhm.
like, what an amazing tribute to your fallen hero. What an amazing
mm,
movie, and what an amazing way of pushing those characters forward without it. Like,
yes.
how do you rebound from the most tragic loss? Like, I didn't know where they were gonna how it was gonna go. Like, how do you do that? How do you find the creative energy to figure out how to move past it? And he
He
made it.
did it.
He took us through it. He
Ah,
got us past it, and he left us with so much hope for the future. Like, I can't
ooh,
wait for the next movie. I can't wait for the series on Disney Plus. I can't wait
Oh
it's
for
man,
so
listen,
Ironheart.
much.
I can't
It's
wait
listen,
so
for like
listen.
much.
for I mean, they had so many Easter eggs that are leading
Listen,
to other shows and other things. This
we,
That
movie
was
was
what I thought was
packed.
lost with this movie is that people were so focused on these super powerful
Yeah.
performances and story and plot and everything like that that the nerds didn't even really get a chance to pierce the veil and pick it apart for all
right.
the Easter
Right.
eggs they're in. Now there's
Right.
stuff on YouTube, but like I
Now,
haven't had Easter egg conversations with my
oh,
nerd crew about this movie like I would have with any other movie that it comes out in MCU. And there
yeah.
Right.
was tons of them. Like I mean,
Yes.
all I don't
Tons.
know if you watch Screen Rant or any of
I
those
do.
those
I
shows,
watched all of those
but
leading up
it's
to
like
today.
every 5 minutes there was an Easter egg drop that was either a callback to something in the past or something harkening to another movie. Or
Yep.
I mean, it was just it
Mhm.
was incredible. It was like, wow, they
Yeah.
really did make this a Marvel movie in the classic sense while still having to make this hard right turn. Remember, Coogler and them had the script and everything written for
Done.
Black Panther 2. They
Done.
Mm,
were ready. And
Done.
so
yes.
when
With
Chadwick
Chadwick all
passed,
in it. Yeah.
they're like, wait a minute, like, hold on, we got a whole movie that we got the
Oh,
storyboards, we got the scripts, and we got to go and figure out how to take the main character out, pull everybody back in, change the story around, put some stuff in and take some stuff out and do all of that, which would have scuttled the average movie, you
Yeah.
know.
mm,
So
It would have
yeah,
derailed any other house.
yeah.
but for the
Yeah.
nerds out
Right.
there, there was so much talking in the movie that just talked about
Yeah.
all these series that are coming and the Phase 5, properties that are
Yeah.
coming out. And if you have a chance to see those things, man, you got a lot to be excited about.
Oh
I
my
know.
God.
That was the thing. Like, I was like, how do you write a movie that,
Oh,
like you said, that had like, we're gonna deal with the matter at hand. you know, and we're gonna take you on this journey. And it wasn't a sad movie. Like, we're talking about the emotions we're feeling. This was an action packed,
it
like
was.
on
It's
the edge of your
beautiful.
seat.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, some of the best action scenes I've ever
Yes.
seen. It was some of the best humor, some of the best timing. I mean,
Yep.
these characters were, I mean, these are people I want to grow up and be like. Like,
Literally.
that's like one of, like, I never see a movie and go, I want to
Yep.
be like that. Like, because it's just, this movie's so cool. It's such a, like, a cool
It
movie as
is.
well. Well, let's start with the beginning. The beginning scene,
Oh,
we hear, in Black Panther 1, we had, you know, we had the voiceover. It starts out Michael B.
mm,
Jordan. You heard his character voicing over Papa, and he's telling him the history of the Black Panther and and the history of Wakanda. But in this movie, we hear Shuri talking and praying in the sense to one of the gods and basically saying, if you
fast.
give me, yeah, if you
Mm,
give me the strength, I'll believe in you. And that whole section like really shows you who Shuri really was. Like, Shuri is a science. She believes in science. She believes in
mhm.
technology. She didn't but really believe in the spiritual world and the spiritual plane, and she didn't believe in those things. And you see her racing around her lab, trying to recreate trying to recreate a cure for her brother who is dying,
Yeah.
who has a disease. She's trying to recreate the herb,
Hmm.
and it's just, and she loses. He's gone. And it's just like, and I like the fact that they didn't go into like, well, why didn't they say what disease he had? And like, we all know why Chadwick Boseman wasn't there. So I don't think we needed to have any major backstory as to
Nope.
why T'Challa wasn't
Didn't need
there.
it.
He had a disease that he dealt with for many years. He kept secret from them, and unfortunately, he passed away from it.
Right.
Well, ironically, in the story, they actually made note that T'Challa had a disease that he didn't tell anybody about. Like in the
Yes.
story,
I love it.
Right.
I
That
love
was
the
and to
parallel.
make that
Yes.
parallel, it was like,
It was
okay, I
important.
see they're using the screen time to process their grief,
Yes.
process our grief, and give us a playing field to start the movie on.
Yes.
And that's why this was a great
based
So
on
opening
smart.
based
scene.
on reality. They rooted that in reality. And
Mhm.
that was that's what made it, again, it was surreal, but it was just so breathable because that's the real story. Like
Mhm.
the
I
real
think that
story.
was such a such a love for the fans for being intelligent. Like, we all knew what
Yes.
happened in real life.
Like,
So
thank
don't
you.
give us some whimsical story. Let's just
Right.
let's just keep it real.
Don't insult our intelligence.
Let's
Like,
put
we
this
know.
let's put this reality smack dab in the beginning of the movie, and we're all going to deal with the reality of this together. And then we see this beautiful scene. Oh, this is like, if my funeral, I need my funeral to
Listen.
be a celebration of life.
Yes.
Like,
If y'all ain't doing the dance, if
culture.
y'all ain't doing the dances and the second lines and all of that combined all together, we can't have it.
Whatever.
We
It
can't.
better be a party, because
It
y'all
better
know I like to party. So it better be a party, and I don't care what color you wear, but it better be a party.
We're all the
And
colors.
I just thought how beautiful to show the African culture, and to show, in our culture, we have celebration of life ceremonies. And, I just thought how beautiful, far too often we get stuck in, the loss, because
Yep.
it consumes you. But we forget to remember, let's celebrate this life. Let's
Right.
celebrate the reason we feel this loss is because his life was so impactful,
Right.
and just the symbolism, just the way they had the grave with the, Black Panther helmet, and, it went up in the spaceship. I mean, everything was amazing. His sword
Beautiful.
and his shield from like it was all so great.
Yeah,
And she's
it
walking
was.
with the mask and the mama. Woo! It was
Yeah.
just everything, right? And so then, like Marvel will always do, we cut to, this boat out in the middle of the dark sea, and it's like some CIA, some they're trying to dig, and they're going deep into the
Some old
ocean.
janky government
Yeah.
behavior.
Exactly. Always.
It's
Why
always the
why is the
janky.
government why is powerful entities always so just dangerous? So it just
Always.
shows them trying. They're looking for, they're down there looking. At the moment, we don't know what they're looking for, but all of a sudden we meet Namor and his crew. And they start climbing out of the boats, and they start singing, and this scene was, I mean, it was amazing.
It was so powerful a scene to introduce the Talakan people, because it was this tie-in to the mythology of sirens, and how they would call to sailors, and sailors would jump out the boats to their doom upon hearing the sirens. And you're talking about a society that was, probably 500-600 years old. So this could very well have been a scenario that had played out in some way, and you're seeing it play out in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the big reveal here, that I think is going to have huge implications for Phase 5, is that there is vibranium somewhere else other than Wakanda.
Yes.
Yep.
And if that is the case, then you're basically looking at a nuclear arms race for vibranium.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get and mine and achieve this vibranium, that they have this machine that can discover it and find it, they're going to have to go into the depths of the ocean under, like high, deep pressure, thousands and thousands of feet underwater or whatever to get it. But that's Namor's turf, and that's a problem.
That's
and
a problem.
It was really, really interesting how we sympathize with Namor for all the reasons that he gives us later in the story. But at the moment, I talk about this, and we talked about this in another discussion about movies. Movies usually ask permission to kill characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they will take a character and they will show them doing something despicable or being bad or something, so
Being
that when they
rotten.
get offed, you're like, oh, well, they deserved it. All right, I'll let you have that. These were mostly scientists. This was like a
Mm-hmm.
science vessel with military accompaniment. They had no idea that the Talokan or anybody else was down there. So this was like James Cameron in
It's like Nice
Titanic,
Guys,
right? Or
Looking
James
for the
Cameron from the Abyss,
The
these high
Abyss.
pressure
Oh,
suits and
yeah.
stuff. But it's all dark and murky, and there's all these creatures that they hadn't seen before because they're at these new depths. And all of a sudden they're gone. I mean, they're like murked. They're not like, there's no monologue and there's
no,
no
nothing.
big dun 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 reveal. They just killed everybody and then off to the next scene. Like,
Like,
that
Yeah.
first camp group of people that go to Crystal Lake and Jason kills them. And
Right.
then the
And you're
movie
like,
starts
what
when
did
the
they
next
do to
group comes. Like,
you?
right. Like, why are these people dying? Well, who is this? Like, we know it's coming, but we didn't know that they were like this. They didn't,
Yeah. It was very
So,
like horror feeling. Like when you saw them coming
yeah.
out, it was creepy and but
Screaming.
it was shot
Like,
so beautifully. Yeah.
oh,
was.
it was amazing,
Yeah.
amazingly shot. But yeah, that's how you introduce. And I mean, when you talk about the power of Namor, because we only saw him really in the dark, we didn't get like this. This is at
Yeah.
night,
Wow.
but he's up here grabbing helicopters and throwing them, and and
Like nothing.
yeah.
Like nothing.
So instantly we know Namor is going to be a situation.
He
Yeah.
We know
is.
there's
He
going to be a
gonna-
problem,
It's a
and I think that's the
problem.
best way to introduce your problem is showing
Oh.
what they're capable of in graphic
Yes.
detail and how willing they are to kill just so you can stay out their business.
Right.
And like, okay, we know who we're up against here. Continue with the
Yes.
movie, sir. Right?
Continue, right? Okay, so then like what was amazing to me is next they bring us to a place where Angela Bassett and Shuri are together. And I know I'm jumping over some things, but Angela takes her daughter to a place where she asks, is trying to teach her, like, we've got to let it go. We've lost your father, we've lost your brother, but we've got to let it go. And it's a year after has been dead. And she knows her daughter is stuck in grief. And she knows that, Shuri has to let go of the anger, has to let go of all of it. And she burns her clothing that she wore to his funeral ceremony, which I thought was so beautiful. Like, I thought,
Yeah.
wow, what a way to just, like, how people send up lanterns and they let
Yeah.
you just kind of burn things and say, I'm going to burn it and it's gone, and I thought,
Mhm.
wow. And Shuri says at that moment, she again voices how she's not ready to let it go. And she would rather burn up the world. Like she says, if I do it, my grief, my anger will burn up the world,
Yeah.
And then out of nowhere, here comes Namor out
Yeah.
of the water. And I'm just like, oh! And again, it just shows like his, how he was able to come through the water. So he was able to infiltrate, get right into Wakanda, like whatever protection they have set up, he is 10 steps ahead of them.
Yep.
And he has that whole monologue where he's talking and he's saying, this is such a beautiful place. And I've heard about this place and the air, it's great. And basically gets down to business and says, look, they're trying to, come and mess with my land.
Right.
And again, this is what happens in real life. Like, I love the fact that we do this in real life. Our countries do this in real life, and we wonder why people hate us, and we wonder why there's problems and why there are
All
things that
over.
happen. Yeah, and he talks about a young scientist that has built a machine, and he's like, "You bring her to me, or we gonna have a problem,"
And
And it was just
the way they set that machine down so quietly, all while they're having this wonderful exchange, quiet exchange. And I was like, and then you look over and this huge thing is sitting there, and I'm like, boy, they tricky, boy. You got to be careful. You got to be careful.
Them telecom, them
Yeah.
people telecom, they on a whole nother level.
Listen.
That's
If
pretty
you didn't
sneaky.
know from
That's
that
sneaky pretty.
exchange how crazy Namor is
Right.
and how bipolar he is,
Yeah.
that's where that was
Psychological.
like, you know how women
Yeah.
talk about red flag moments, like all of that was red flag. Because
We don't care.
because
He
first
had
of
the little
all,
shorts on, though. He just,
because
come on.
you
We
know,
don't
Queen
care.
Miranda's sitting there with the spear in face, and she like,
Like,
I'm not the type of person like repeating myself. Like,
Yeah.
who are you?
Who are you?
You're up here talking
Right.
to yourself. I'm asking you a question. We over here talking to us.
And
he's
he
over there
kept
like,
talking.
he said, my people call me Kuku Khan, the snake, serpent god. He said, but my enemies call me Namor. And what really kind of tricks everything out and places everyone's that from that moment, everyone calls him Namor in
Namor.
Wakanda.
Yeah.
They go back and say Namor.
Mhm.
They didn't say Kuku Khan. They said
Yeah.
Namor. So you already know where everybody's already facing. They wasn't even trying to deal with him. I mean, you're talking about Wakanda, very proud, very isolated, very protective country. And
Mhm.
here he is infiltrating it, just showing up in the middle of this space is supposed to be protected,
Mhm.
threatening the queen, threatening the princess. So they already not really trying to feel whatever he got going on, but it set the stage, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that he was so willing to turn on a dime and say, "Hey, this is beautiful. I love this air. This is," and in the same breath, he's like, "I've got as many soldiers as you have blades of grass." Like so, like
Come on.
like
Talk about
so,
fighting words.
right? Like he talking about call the whole hood.
He was like, look,
You
he was like
call
how
the
we
whole
say,
hood.
how we be like, oh, that's cute. Oh, look at that little, that's so cute. He just did that. He had that whole vibe of how how we minimize
Whatever you
somebody's,
think.
whatever it is you have and you thought was big.
Right.
And he's like, oh, that's cute. You got a whole little land up here. It's cute
Sure be a
air.
shame if something
It's
happened
cute.
to it.
Sure would be a shame. It
You
sure would
know?
be a shame.
Oh, I would really
he,
hate to have to come back here.
he was fire. He was absolute fire.
Now
I mean,
listen,
I fell in
I
love
want
with
to,
him.
fellas. I know there's some brothers watching this right now. Back of their teeth is gritting because you watched this movie with your lady or somebody you wanted to be a lady.
and we was
And
like,
she was throwing panties and underwear at the screen and
no,
huffing
not
and
all
puffing
that.
and clutching her pearls and you've
I
been working
was.
against this brother that she don't even know this
I
whole
was
time.
like, why is this man so handsome?
He's a
And
pretty one.
he's so mean. Like it was the same feelings
No.
we felt for Michael B. Jordan. Why he acting
he's
like
so
that, looking so good?
I can change him.
We could fix that. We
Wait,
could fix
let
that.
me
All
need some
our
sunshine
social
in his
workers
life.
to love. We're all social workers to love.
Send me down to Talu Khan. Let me talk to him more.
Let me talk to him, Namor. I can give you some
God.
Namor.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Well, you
hissing
know,
and huffing and puffing and teeth sucking that was going
I've-
on in that theater. I
Yeah.
was like, I had my arms folded. I was like, this is ridiculous.
I've talked
Focus,
about
people.
Tenoch Huerta a lot. And
Tenoch.
I have appreciated
You got the
him.
phonetic pronunciation,
Yes,
ladies and gentlemen. By the way,
I practiced
that's all you
how
need to
he
know.
says his name. I was practicing how this baby's pronounced his own name, and I was like, let me practice that. But no,
Yes.
he's really an incredible actor, and I love the way he embraces being a full dark skinned, brown skinned Mexican. Like he knows, and he has connected so deeply on such an incredible personal level with this film and being a part of something like this. And it's like, I mean, he sees the importance of it, and I watch his videos, and half the time I be liking his stuff. I be like, I don't know what he's saying, but whatever it is,
right? Like, no, but I'll tell you this. This brings up another, this brings up another level of genius for Ryan Coogler, the Marvel executives, the casting agent. You know, when they first did the first Black Panther, you know, it's like you know, in the Mexican and the Black communities, there's colorism. Like we suffer from that, and so we get a movie with beautiful Black people, and not a little Black, but like black from Africa. Like I remember they had a whole conversation of the first movie where they wanted the Wakandans to have British accents. And I
Right.
remember they stood up, and Chadwick was one of those who was very vocal and said, if they have British accents, that means Wakanda has been colonized.
Oh,
That goes against everything that this
everything.
movie stands for. And so for them to cast someone like Tenoch, someone who is Mexican,
Mhm.
who is a dark-skinned Mexican, who, like, for them to do that, and every single actor who was, in Telecon, and they were ethnically recognizable for
Yes.
their ethnicity. It wasn't,
Yes. There was no
it wasn't,
whitewashing.
yeah, there was no whitewashing.
No
It was
colonizers.
so
Yeah.
beautiful. And then to
Hmm.
show two different worlds like Wakanda and Telecon, to show these two countries that have prospered without colonization, but have
Because it works.
prospered beyond our imagination.
Can work.
It was just like everything our cultures need. It's
I'm going to say
everything
something
we need to
ironic.
see.
Yeah.
Please.
It's going to be something ironic, but I think the only time we've seen this Mesoamerican, Aztec, Olmec,
Mayan, yeah.
culture this
Mhm.
accurately portrayed, the only other time I've seen it, it probably exists other places, is in Apocalypto. And
Mm.
you saw, because I was a big fan of that movie, and so I was able to see, like, oh, like that's that game, that like the little precursor to basketball that was actually played in Mayan culture, where they're
Yeah.
kicking the ball through the little oblong hoop, or little
Yep.
loop,
Yeah.
and they're
Mhm.
doing that in Talukan, and this hand signal is an actual stance that you see
Mhm.
in
Hmm.
sculpture and in art, in
Yeah.
Mayan culture and Aztec culture, and they incorporated that, and they're actually speaking like Aztec.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
he's not
Mhm.
speaking some broken Mexican version
No.
of something. They didn't remix it. Like
They
they
A
actually
minion.
they
brought
A
did the
in
work.
minion
the
language.
They did
they
the
brought the
work.
real language, and there's like people who really study this, who are part of that culture, who saw the movie and were like, oh snap, like they really did it. Like, they're looking at
Yeah.
everything.
That's commitment.
Which is why I think it's so important to note that, with Ryan Coogler being able to do what he did with the Black Panther
Right.
cultural injection, to be able to replicate that in a culture that's not his, right?
Exactly.
Mm.
He's not directly
The
connected to
respect.
Mesoamerican culture,
The
and for
respect he
him to
gave.
have, yeah, to be able to take that template and take that same energy and say, I want the same authenticity in Talokan that I had achieved in Black Panther
Yes.
in Wakanda, and to achieve it,
Yeah.
and to make it such an important part of the movie that goes down so
Mm.
smooth. I mean, I don't know if there's an award for something like, I don't even know if there's a category for something like that.
He gets my award.
He gets
Right?
it.
He
He
gets
gets it.
my,
The
like,
bop.
literally, if I see Ryan Coogler walking down the street, the conversation I'm going to have with this man and how he has changed my life as an
Other
Afro
than what's 10 off
Latina.
number,
Right.
Other than
Other than
I just
that,
got to holler at him real quick.
other than delivering me Chadwick Boseman, Michael B. Jordan, and to not, like, I mean, other than that,
right.
Winston Duke, no, but the conversation I'm going to have with him as an Afro Latina, and just being able to see both cultures celebrated so
Mhm.
authentically and so purely. I don't even know what the word I'm looking for, but just so right. It felt
Yeah.
so right,
It
and
was organic.
it made
Yeah.
me
It
feel
wasn't
so
forced.
good. It made me feel so happy to be who I am. And it
Mm.
just brings pride when you see yourself on screen, or you see something that you can relate to culturally. It just brought me, I don't know. I think I cried for that. Like, I literally, like, I just was like so happy. Like, it just moved me in ways I didn't know I needed to be moved.
Mhm.
Well,
I'm pretty,
the fact that it moved you moves me, because I mean, it's
yeah.
not my culture. I don't know if it's accurate, other than I'm a history buff and stuff. And
Hmm.
I recognize that. I recognize this, but it's not connected to me. But when I see people who have Mexican heritage and South American heritage seeing themselves and getting excited about what they're seeing, and there's no, oh, he got this wrong, or oh, he skipped over this, or oh,
Yeah.
he went the wrong way on that, it's like, I'm like, oh my God, like he really hit the note. It's like when I go to like when you want to go to an authentic Mexican restaurant, what's the first thing you look for? I want to see Mexican people eating in here. Like,
That's
Right.
it.
if I
That's
if
my
I don't
cue.
see Mexican
Right.
people
Any
eating in the restaurant,
then That
It's
goes for
probably
every
9%.
culture.
Right.
Anytime I go anywhere around the world, and I told this to, we were in New Zealand, because they have a lot of like their food is very it's very culturally diverse. Like it's not a like you usually it's very Asian influenced, very Indian influenced. And so I was like, if they're not eating here, we don't need to eat here because I don't want the fake version of that. I want the authentic food. But no, it made me feel things I didn't know I would feel. And the reality is, I mean, you think about a country that has basically, made Mexicans feel like they're immigrants in their own land that was stolen from them, made them feel like, they don't belong in this country with these border walls and this bullshit that we've had to listen to. We had to listen to for 4 years. And then you have like my other culture where it's like we've always felt they've tried to make us feel like we're criminals. They've tried to make us feel like we don't belong in this society. They try to block us from voting. They do everything to hold us back. And so for that whole team of people to have created these two worlds and these two beautiful countries, and you see nothing but beautiful people, successful, happy, flourishing, like the most powerful, it just made my heart. I don't know, my heart ain't the same. And I thank them. My heart is not the
and
same.
to know that it's going to be a big part of Phase 5. I mean, this was just the introduction to Namor and the introduction
This
to
is
Talokan.
like just gave us a scratch.
This is a whole other This is a whole other just world of storytelling that can happen here. And if this is what is the baseline, then you can look forward to seeing. Well, I mean, we know Namor is going to be in other movies. I don't know if he's going to have a standalone, but the fact that he's going to be in other movies and Talokan is going to be involved in Phase 5 means that we're going to get a deeper exploration of their culture. We'll probably get an opportunity to revisit. Hopefully we'll see him on the right side of right more than the wrong side of right.
Because it could go either way with him.
Well,
yeah, I mean, that's how he is as a comic book character. He usually, whenever he's in a comic, he's beating the butt off of the people that, in the first 20 frames before he goes and helps them with the mission. It's like always you offended me by showing up on my land, or you didn't call first, and this is not the way you treat royals. He's beating up Fantastic Four, he's beating up the Avengers, he's beating up Captain America, he's beating everybody up. That's his calling card. That's his hello.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't, as a comic books fan, surprised to see just how quick he went from 0 to 100, because that's what he does as a character, and they're true to that. But we're going to see a whole lot more of him coming in the future, so I'm really excited.
I'm excited too. We get to meet Riri Williams, who is Ironheart, and we get to it goes into the story of, obviously we see Valentina Allegra and Everett Ross, and we find out how they are searching, for these minerals, and they're searching to take over, because Wakanda basically has all the because they have why can't I think of it? Because they have the
vibranium.
Vibranium. Yes, vibranium. I'm like, why can't I think of it? I mean, I'm telling you, I'm so excited to talk about this movie because they have vibranium. Like, we saw how the French had tried to go in and they tried to, take over one of their labs and one of their places, and we see that they are now being hunted. And Angela Bassett gives that speech in front of that with her arms and her headdress and her glory. And basically says, you aren't going to come into my land. And next time y'all try to do that, we going to deal with y'all in a different way, you know. But we find out, we learn about Riri Williams and how she was tricked into making this machine that can detect vibranium and that can find vibranium. And that's what Namor wants. He wants her because he thinks if I kill her and I destroy her, then they won't find us. And I have to protect my land at all costs. And, he's like, it's okay if you wanted to bring them into your land. That's your business. But now they're over here knocking on my door. you know? And so it's just all a problem. And I just loved her character. I loved seeing her. Like, she was funny when they had that scene with her and Shuri and Okoye in the dorm room.
Okoye with the makeup. That was so funny to me. I was like, oh my God, this is hysterical. That was such a lighthearted, you know, it was, and it was, again, it was a shift for her character because she's
Yes.
always so fierce. And for her to then have this insecurity, like, am I blended? Is this right? Is this
With
my
that
color? I
ashy
told
head.
you. Yeah. I mean, it was brilliant. I thought the Riri Williams character she was so relatable. It was so realistic. There, again, nothing with these films is ever forced. There's nothing that's unrealistic. It's like, again, it's conversations. It's the way we talk. It's the way we act. It's who we are. It's just so organic. And I love that. But I want to say something to the whole twist, how, of course, Namor shifts. There's a shift, obviously, when we get to the end. But it was interesting because when I was thinking in hindsight about the movie, and I was like, usually it's the colonizer coming in and and this film dealt with these two worlds of color, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but there was a bigger battle. There's always a bigger battle brewing. So even when we have conflict among each other, it's almost like towards the end, they brought it full circle and said, yeah, but don't forget, there's always the bigger, the outsider, that element or that entity that wants to take all of y'all down, like all of us, all of the color down.
Yeah.
And so they did not forget to go back to, they're up to something. So we had better figure out our differences
Right.
and get it together. I mean, that's real world shit. Like, that is
For real.
how life is. Like, we all have to get to that point at some point and say, you know what, we're two different cultures, but again, there's always that common denominator, that common enemy. And for whatever reasons, for whatever stupid excuses they have, but it's real. And we better figure our shit out. We better figure it out together.
Yeah.
Or, it's just going to be, a greater mess. And I like that they did do that shift, by the time we got to the end of this, where, again, it seems like, I know Namor is like all over the place mentally, but I appreciated that there was this moment of truce, this moment of realization that, you know what, we have a common enemy and it's coming. It's coming.
I think they use that to set the stage for the future storytelling. And we may see this in the world, or Agents of Wakanda, the World of Wakanda. I think it's Agents of Wakanda. But that's the series is probably going to deal more with that, because vibranium is the gold standard. Like, everybody is looking for it. And with Everett Ross being married to the director or ex-husband, and now being persona non grata, if not somebody they're actually seeking to jail, he's going to be playing a different role. And there's all these, she's going to be key for all these different titles, Thunderbolts and the New Avengers and all of that stuff. So it's going to be huge. But I think that's the stage that has been set. Like, I think there's going to be that the storyline that brought us, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and all of these ground level storylines from the Winter Soldier itself movie, that is going to be about vibranium. And everybody's going on this race to get vibranium, and we got to go through Wakanda or through Talokan to get it. And that means we're going to have to involve some superpowered people, and hence let the story ensue. But I think we have to remember, Namor is like 550 years old, right? And he's actually witnessed like literal colonization, like not even that soft stuff with the cultural appropriation and all that sort of, like, he literal enslavement and colonization of his, his native land. So he's got a very, very, very stark perspective of what Western society wants to do with his people and with their resources. And that's why he was like, we're not even having a conversation. I'm not going to UN. I'm not issuing no warning. The whole movie is about keep my name out your mouth. That's literally all I got. That's all Namor wants.
Wakanda. It's like Black Panther, Wakanda forever. Keep your name out my mouth. Keep your name
out your mouth. If you say my name, he was like Debo or Candyman. I don't know whose name you don't want to say. He was like, if you say my name, to the Americans or anybody outside of Wakanda, I'm gonna
Coming.
kill you.
Yeah.
Kill you.
And
We kill all of y'all. Everybody.
I'm killing everybody. Hide your wives, hide your
Hide your
husbands. I'm killing
kids.
everybody. I
Can
said,
we
dang,
just can we just
dang.
right now? I don't know what's next on the list, but I'm gonna tell y'all.
Yes.
Can I just throw out the moment that made me?
What was next on the list is I was going to ask you for your favorite scene, but it sounds like you're about to give it to me.
I'm
Give
about
me
to
your
just-
There you
moment.
go. You right
I'm
on
Give me your
point.
moment.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna say, well, there's so many favorite. The whole
I
scene
know.
is
There's
my
no.
favorite.
I know. It's like picking your favorite kid. But go
But
ahead.
let me right. but let me
Not
let me
possible.
let me say the moment that made me absolutely holler out loud because I said I knew something. It couldn't be over. When that damn Michael B. Jordan showed up on the damn screen, y'all, I
that was my
lost my
yeah.
mind. I lost my mind. I
So
was like, oh,
yeah.
God, he was so
Yeah.
beautiful. It was
So
wonderful.
so this is the thing. Well, let me just set the scene for them. So for those of you who have not seen this movie, shame on you.
Again,
Yeah. But let me tell you exactly. Give it to him. But what happens is, Shuri finally is able because Namor gives her a bracelet that has his mother's what did it have? It had
like an
something from the
amulet.
herb.
It
Yeah.
was made from the texture, the
Of,
tungsten of
of
their
the
heart
herb or
of
something.
their
Yeah.
herb, which is the same version. Yeah,
Of
anyway, yes.
the
A little
right.
a
And she
little
was
bit
able to
different.
replicate the DNA and replicate and 3D print a new heart
Yes.
shaped herb and get the Black Panther power.
And so she's able to do this, right? And when you get the Black Panther power, you drink it, and
Go to
she's
the
like,
ancestral.
Nakia's like, okay, should I bury you? And she's like, no. Like, don't even, like, she doesn't want any of the ceremony. Just give me this and give me the power. Because at this moment, we're going to go back to this, but she's lost. And we're going to go back. We're going to talk about the second loss she has. But she's lost and she's in the midst of anger, in the midst of revenge, in the midst of, I need to get power to protect my country from this man, from Namor. And so she takes this herb and you go to the ancestral plane and she expects to either see her mother, her brother, her father. She expects to see her family when she goes. But because of where she is emotionally,
Yes.
she sees Michael B. Jordan's character
And the
and
Chaka.
she sees T'Chaka and he's sitting there on the throne and she's pissed and he goes, you picked me. And she goes, no, I didn't. I would never pick you, but it just goes to show you where she was. And he basically calls her out and he says, your brother was too noble. He goes, but you're like me. You want revenge. You want to avenge their deaths. You want to do what I did. You want to burn it all up. And she has to face the fact that is where she's at. Yep. She's not where her brother was when her father died. She's not, she's in the sunken place almost, and I mean, that scene was probably one of my favorite scenes. It was so impactful on, just for me on what happens when you sit in the negative of the loss, as opposed to like, when you don't get your place to that you don't get your place to that place where you can let it go, or at least I don't think you ever let it go, but you know what I'm saying? Like you get to where you're like, either I'm going to break from this or I'm going to just heal from this somehow.
Right.
Like, I don't know. There's just some like, it's like that minuscule of hope, like you
have to have a
proper,
there's a proper way to grieve and a healthy way to grieve, and cope with your loss and your pain and sorrow. And when you don't do that, imagine, it makes me think like in our real lives, like think about who's going to come see you based on where you are and what you're dealing with. And if we were conscious of that, if we actually lived, I mean, it may help some people. It may help some people. It may, horrify others. But yeah, that's it was just an incredible way to show how unhealthy she really was and dealing with that loss, and what was really taking over her. And but it also made you, again, it made me even appreciate, that pain and that grief. It doesn't negate what you are going through. It doesn't take away from the fact, because even in T'Chaka, what he his anger and his rage was because he was left behind. He was
And it
neglected.
was true.
Right. It was valid. It was
It was
absolutely
so valid.
valid. You know what he was angry about. I understood. I mean, he kind of handled it wrong, but
Totally wrong.
but there's no, you don't have a gauge, when you don't have a compass, to help you navigate that, then you can go off the deep end like that, just like that. In the
I
blink
think
of an eye. It's a
what
fine
they
line.
did with that scene, as you're describing it, Christy, is that she, in her chosen posture as Black Panther, she brought in the Killmonger, but she also brought in, T'Challa,
Yes.
and ultimately brought in her mother, right?
Yeah.
And like, so she's ready for war. So you see her posture when she comes down out of the ship, falls 400 feet and stands there and then does the, I don't know if you remember the movie Predator, where Arnold Schwarzenegger and Apollo Creed do the slap, to kind of test, like, oh, okay, you got that herb in you. I see what you got going on. You got that herb in you. All right, right. But he's making, this is where you see this shift in M'Baku from being this boisterous, just like, what the hell are you people doing? Bald-headed demon, all that, to like, okay, everybody, wait a minute. If we kill him, we're looking at an eternity of war, because they don't call him king. They call him Kukulkan, the serpent god. Like, he is a god. If we kill him, we'll never not be at war with Talokan. Are we ready for that? Like, are we trying to do that, or what else? We got to figure something out.
Like, what we doing?
And so he's actually like shifting into the voice of reason, right? And from the shift, just from the movie. Forget about movie one, but just from the beginning of this movie. Yeah, I mean, he did take a chest punch from this guy and go flying across. He's like, okay, wait a minute.
Rude awakening.
Like, right. Oh, this brother's on something. But she turns to him and she's like, I'm going to do this and you are going to help me. Do you understand? And she gives him that ice grill. And he's like, okay. All right. All right. And you're like, that was the evolution of Shuri that I think a lot of people were not sure could be achieved in the story and with this actor. And we saw that and we're like, no, that was a chilling look. That was a really chilling thing to say, and this plan that's coming up is going to be for all the marbles. So and she really, really, really carried that. And it became the second arc of the movie.
Yes.
Was just her being able to, like, okay, I've got the power and I've got the strategy and I've got the mantle and I got all this stuff and I got to figure out how to beat this guy without killing him. And it's this real narrow needle to thread. And she finds a way to do it when nobody, not even me in the audience, thought she could. I'm like, he don't seem like somebody that's going to stop trying to do what he's doing, and
but again, that comes like that part of her brother that I think she has, where he was very, like, T'Challa was a smart fighter. Like, he was like always playing chess when people were playing checkers. I learned that about him on Civil War, when at the end where he stops what's his name from killing himself and he goes, this world needs, and they bring that up, your brother allowed that your father's killer to live, and it's like, some people think that was a weak move on T'Challa. That was a smart move on T'Challa, because he knew like, I can't kill you. If I kill you in this anger, then this changes me. And so for me, saving you from yourself, this betters me as a leader and as someone that I'm about to have to go, at the end of Civil War. He knew he was going to have to go and become king in Wakanda. So he was mentally preparing himself. And I thought they really showed that in Shuri in that moment, even though she's a different person and obviously she deals with things differently. But she was like, okay, if I'm going to beat him, I have to be smart about it. We've got to think of what his weakness is. We've got to think of the technology in order to, be his kryptonite. Because this man has no kryptonite. He's as strong as freaking, he's as strong as the Hulk, and all of his super soldiers, like, I mean, can you imagine, Winston Duke's character, who he's like the strongest one in the fight, and then you get punched in the chest like that, and you're like, what? Like, when the strongest guy gets taken down, that is humbling. So he, like you said, it was so many character changes and adjustments, and characters just taking on different things. And one of the characters that really impressed me as well is Okoye. And
Yeah.
let's talk about the thing between her and Angela Bassett.
Mm.
Obviously
That was deep. That was a lot.
scene.
I felt that deep down. That was tough. It was really, really tough.
Listen, that was.
Who wants to take it?
Listen, this is what I took away from it as a black man, and this is how I explained it to other black men. I said, a black woman will let you can spend your whole life on strike 2 with a black woman, and she may not say nothing, she may not act funny, she might not give you no attitude, but the minute you hit strike 3 and it's all gone, you'll be like, wait a minute, I didn't even know I was on strike 2. She's like, well, let me tell you where your other 2 strikes are. And the fact that she had been holding all of that in, and righteously so, because like in the abstract, we're thinking like, damn, like she must feel some sort of way about this or that. But the movie didn't go into it because she's a queen and she's all right. We got to move forward. I'm gonna let it go. But she's like, I watched you, take the side of men that sat on that throne while I was out here trying to fight for my life. And then yours, she's like, but I sacrificed everything. And my husband's like, your husband's where you can go visit him. Where's my entire family? She gives that speech. And I mean, that performance, that's the one. Like, that's the
Angela Bassett.
And just reading Okoye, and Okoye is like, it's dawning on her. Like, she had no idea that she was on strike 3.
Right.
Like, she had no idea that the bases were loaded and she was on strike 2 and she just missed the pitch. She had no clue what thin ice she was on until she fell through. Yeah. And I said, I've seen that happen. And I think there's something in the DNA of the black woman that allows her to just, I'm going to put this rage in this bottle over here, and I'm put some rage over here, and I'm not going to let it interfere with my operation. I'm going to go through my day. But once you knock one of them bottles over, I was like,
that's
over.
I was like, I'm sitting there like, you about to get rid of her? And then when she got to the end of the speech, I was like, oh yeah, that makes kind of sense. I see what you want.
It's like, it is kind of like
you did kind of support Killmonger when he was while she was out in the woods trying to.
She's climbing up that big ass mountain to get to M'Baku's house. They went from like summer in Wakanda to like winter in Antarctica.
Listen,
it's that innate ability, or again, it's forced, to compartmentalize and to pack things away in different spaces, and some things you'll never have to touch again. But you're right. And they hold at that second strike for, it can be 10, 20, 30 years. And then that last thing hit and let you try to act like you didn't know you was on. You ain't know all these other strikes. Let me remind you.
Act like you don't remember this mental list I'm keeping.
Try. Just try.
What were they like? That was like 7 years ago. I mean, at this point.
Yeah.
And the fact that she thought that they had gone so far past it and all this stuff. And she like, I told you I didn't want her to go. You took my child. Now my entire family is gone. And you're just like, oh man.
She got
they didn't even let Okoye like leave on some cool stuff. Like, she marched away like a child on timeout. Did you see? She didn't get like no long short. She kind of did the little steps. I'm like, she was dressed down.
You felt it though, but you felt. But you know what? How powerful was that?
Yeah.
How powerful was that?
That was the movie.
Like, it was. Yeah.
I thought I was in trouble.
It was like, I was like, where do we? I know. Like,
Auntie Bassett, what I do? Are you yelling at me? Or are you yelling at them?
Hey, Auntie.
Your mama be yelling too far away. You don't know who you're yelling at.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was powerful. God,
I was trying to like write in her Oscar nomination as like Angela Bassett. If Angela Bassett doesn't win, what we gonna do as a community?
We should
storm the Capitol.
What are we?
Oh God!
What are we gonna do?
We gonna storm the Capitol.
Don't even play.
Y'all trying to change the election? No, we're gonna
storm the Oscar Capitol. We gonna march in Hollywood.
gonna march on the wrong building. We're gonna be at the post office somewhere. We marching on something.
We are going to freaking, yeah. We need to do
We're gonna be at the
something,
post
right? I'm
office.
like, You know what's so funny is that we need, like, we were gonna shoot another show, and we are like literally over on this show. But
Yeah,
I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a part 2, and this is we're gonna start part 2 right now. And so, you guys, thank you for tuning in. We are literally we're going to continue this conversation. We're not going anywhere, but you're going to get this episode in 2 parts. And so thank you for watching the BOP, the BLERD official podcast. We love you. We mean it. So tune in, because we got part 2 starting right away. Bye. Tune in every Tuesday for a new episode of the BOP, the BLERD official podcast.